Welcome viewers to this series of lectures on the settlement pattern of the Harappan civilization, and we have had three discussions related to this particular topic earlier, and we had discussed the regions around which most of the sites of Harappan civilization are located. We tracked the typology of these regions with respect to the kind of soil, whether it is an elevated area, whether it is close to some mountain range supplying some critical stone resource, or is it close to some rivers which inundates the adjoining area, leading to increased fertility, soil fertility, and therefore these sites mushroomed in this area. Or historically we are also seeing the pre-mature phase instances at some sites, which is a pointer to the fact that people were living at these sites from an earlier period, from several centuries prior to the beginning of the mature phase. And mature phase of Harappan civilization around 2500 BC only represented some kind of a continuously increasing sophistication and development, material development, and therefore that again becomes a pointer to the argument of local sources of Harappan civilization, in contrast to what earlier was very overtly projected as factors from outside leading to the growth of this civilization from Mesopotamia, from Egypt, and so forth. So this discussion on settlement pattern allows us to not only know the details and life strategies and the way people resorted to managing the resources that are locally available, but also have some fresh insights into the origin issues of the Harappan civilization, to what extent it was an expansion or sophistication of an earlier culture which was already there, and certainly there are certain new features that almost suddenly appear around 2500 BC, and the sources for that, the causes for that could be anybody's guess, but there is a substantial local kind of origin arguments which is also very much there for Harappan sites with respect to the food basket, with respect to the critical grains that even in the mature period people were consuming, or the animals that they were domesticating, some of the motifs, some of the cultural attributes that we so iconically identify with mature phase of Harappan civilization, burnt bricks, houses, and so forth. So some of these practices were very much there in the period prior to mature phase of Harappan civilization in areas around these sites or right below these sites. So we have discussed in details several regions of Harappan civilization in terms of territory, and in the earlier lecture we started discussing about the details of specific sites. For example, in the earlier lecture we spoke about Harappa. So similarly, if we move to another region, another area where we have a cluster of sites in Harappa, that happens to be the lower Ghaggar Saraswati, or what is also known as the Satluj Yamuna divide in Harappan area, where the civilization had flourished. Now, in this area, we get to see quite a few sites like Kalibangan, as you can see on your slide, Kalibangan, Banavali, Rakhigadhi, Mitathal, and they are quite big sites. Kalibangan is a 12-hectare site. And interestingly, of course, Kalibangan is the modern name, and interestingly, many dark terracotta bangles are found strewn on the surface at the time of excavation. So maybe that this practice continued, or maybe that there is some accidental burning of the site, or whatever reasons could be behind it, and then the site got abandoned, and that is why even on the surface we find strewn dark terracotta bangles, and that acquires a name of its own, Kali Bangan. Bangan is of course bangles, Kali is black. So, these are some of the interesting etymological inferences that we can make even with the present nomenclature of these settlements, why certain areas were called with certain name over centuries subsequent to Harappan civilization, or demise of Harappan civilization. Banavali is yet another site in this area, Ghaggar Saraswati or Satluj Yamuna divide area. This is 16 hectares. Rakhi Garhi is 24 hectares, which is quite big. And then Mitathal is a relatively smaller excavated site of 7 hectare dimension. Now, looking at Kalibangan, from Kalibangan, as I was talking about the origin issues or pre-Harappan layers being present at some of the sites, at Kalibangan we have early phase or early Harappan culture also present, and then over a period of time it matures, or it enters the mature phase of Harappan period. So, people were living at Kalibangan even prior to the beginning of the mature phase of Harappan civilization. Now, in both cases, whether it was early settlement, early Harappan settlement, or mature Harappan settlement at Kalibangan, the settlement is fortified. So, fortification is something that is not beginning only with the coming of the mature phase, but even in the period prior to the mature phase we have fortifications at Kalibangan. So, that is one. The citadel and the lower town both are fortified. So, this is unlike quite a few other Harappan sites where only the citadel area is fortified, and this we discussed in the previous lecture, that Harappan towns and cities offer us instance of both types, where not only citadel but the entire settlement, entire city settlement is fortified. We have at Kalibangan, even in the mature phase, mud brick residences in quite a few, in quite a good number, and this is unlike Harappa, this is unlike Mohenjo-daro or Chanhu-daro, from where we have burnt brick structures. So, the Kalibangan residences are not or Kalibangan residences are not made of burnt bricks, but mostly of mud bricks, sun dried mud bricks only. And the lower town has a grid of streets which is not in alignment with the city walls. So, a particular alignment which was maintained in other mature Harappan cities of the downtown streets with the peripheral wall, that is at variance in Kalibangan. So, again an instance of variety. So, it is part of Harappan civilization Kalibangan, but there is an individuality or there is a regional flavor, or there is some kind of specifics which are exclusive to Kalibangan as well. In the citadel area, the northern part is residential, and southern part has what we must have read in our school textbooks as fire altars or fire platforms, sacrificial pits, and so forth. So, we do not know what purpose they used these pits or fire altars for, but since all of us know that subsequently it is the Vedic civilization that developed in northwestern part of India, and their sacrifice was the chief mode of worshipping. Agni is a devata in Rigvedic times. So, there is some kind of a attempt to understand or to make sense of these archaeological structures, also with that frame, with that religion and religiosity frame. Now, beyond the walled-in sectors lie a cemetery and a ritual structure with fire altars. Now, this again is outside the walled area. So, there are some structures that typically lie outside the walled area. So, on the periphery we have such structures, and this again tells you which is something which is in consonance with the morphology of even modern cities. Some areas which are very or some activities which are sporadic and it's not a routine thing, and yet it requires a lot of area in congregational terms and so for congregational purpose or whatever. So, they generally are located on the periphery of a city. For example, in the modern context, if you visualize airports, airports invariably will be on the periphery of any city, because it requires a huge stretch of land, and it is not for the usage of everyone that you have to go to the airport every day. So, lanes by lanes take you to every nook and corner of a city, but for traveling long distance, of course, you have to resort to flights, and so you occasionally go there, right. So, this is something that has to be understood with that kind of a perspective in mind. Northern part of the cemetery has burials in pots in round pits. Now, this is little at variance with what was practiced elsewhere in Harappan cities. So, burials in pots in round pits is something which is specific to this particular site. In southern part, of course, we have ordinary rectangular pit graves. So, there is again some distinction, and it could be an indicator of the variance that we get to see in people's status or some religious affiliation or some practices, community practices and so forth. This again could be an indicator towards the cosmopolitan nature of the population that lived in the city, and they practiced different rites and rituals and so forth, even for funerary practices. Alongside that, we also have symbolic burials. Now, symbolic burials are interesting because funerary potteries are there kept inside earth, but it carries no corporeal remains. So, again it could be part of some practice post death. What was done to the dead body is not known, but maybe for some afterlife convenience or whatever, some practices were there where in the memory of the dead person some pottery was inserted in burial like situation without carrying any corporeal human remains. So, that is something that we get to see at this site. Also, at Kalibangan, we have a very crucial evidence coming with respect to the script of Harappan civilization, because in one of the instances where Harappan script is inscribed, we get to see that if it's like this, suppose you write something from left to right. This is how we write English or Hindi, from left to right. So, if we make a mistake, suppose we want to write her, and instead of her we wrote something else. Now, we can't delete it, so we will cross it and again try to write her to its right, right. So, that is an indicator of the fact that a wrongly written syllable is cut, and then again it is attempted to be written rightly to its right. So, that is an indicator of the fact that the script is written from left to right. But if the reverse happens, then at least it is a pointer of the fact that the script is written from right to left. So, this critical evidence comes from Rakhi Gadhi, and then again something which again school textbooks carry a lot, plod 2 set furrowed mark also comes from Harappa, which again is a great pointer towards use of plowshare, use of plow for agricultural purpose, and also that they are using 2 crop systems. So, the summer crops and winter crops could be one option. We do not know it was that way, but they are furrowing the land, they are making it suitable for agriculture by creating 2 set of furrowed marks, so that something could be sown at one furrow and something else could be sown in the other furrow. So, this is a mixed kind of cultivation that perhaps people at Rakhi Gadhi are doing, and interestingly this evidence comes from early Harappan layer. So, it is not mature Harappan layer that we are talking of, so little prior to that. So, these practices related to subsistence basis of Harappans is coming from Kalibangan earlier layer. Then another site is Rakhi Gadhi, which as we discussed is a very large site. We have terracottas of animals preponderantly present at this site, and there are other sites like Banavali in this region. Now, at Banavali there is an unencircled citadel with enclosed city. So, citadel area is not bound by walls, but the city is enclosed. So, there is peripheral wall around the city, but the citadel area is not bound. So, that is one distinct feature that we get to see at Banavali. Then there are deep and wide moat along the perimeter wall. Again, this is something specific to Banavali. Subsequently in history, in the Vedic period, we have several descriptions where Pura or cities are described and the citadel area is described in such a way where there is a provision. So, the implication of deep and wide moat along the perimeter wall acquires significance from the point of view of what gets described subsequently in the Vedic period as a characteristic feature of Pura, where for safety purpose, for defense purpose, water carrying moat is dug along the perimeter wall, so that the invaders find some kind of a hindrance and they do not enjoy very easy unhindered access to the fortified area. At Banavali, we do have seals, but the typical unicorn seals that are so characteristic of Harappan settlements, they are not very many in number. So, Banavali again makes some distinction of its own in terms of seal findings. We also get a terracotta model of plow. It is a terracotta model, all right, but certainly indicative of plow cultivation, and that goes on to tell us about the economic activity and reliance on agriculture that this site had. Material stratum is similar to the lowest Kalibangan. So, the lowest layer of Kalibangan, whatever material we have been able to unearth, Banavali almost matches with that. So, there is some kind of you can say proximity in material terms also between Kalibangan and Banavali. Now, this takes us to yet another area, that is Sindh area, and iconic site of Sindh area of course is Mohenjo-daro. And we all know that more flood discharge is there to the west. So, if the river Indus is flowing from north to south, then the western part of the river, of the western direction of the river flow, receives more flood discharge as compared to its eastern part, and therefore, very logically the western portion of the Indus will have more alluvial deposit, and therefore, the western part of the Indus will have more fertile soil, and therefore, there is likelihood of more concentration of settlement in the western part as compared to its eastern part. And this is precisely what we get to see in the settlement pattern of this area. Mohenjo-daro itself is to the west of Indus in Larkana district, and it is also it is not the only justification. So, it is not only on account of fertility of soil that we are trying to justify location of Mohenjo-daro. It is also very accessible from Bolan Pass, which could have been a critical advantage in trade terms. And therefore, what we find Mohenjo-daro is a very large site, 125 to 150 hectare site. And Mohenjo-daro, we all know, it is an extensively excavated site. More than 300 structures have been unearthed, more than 700 wells have been uncovered. And again, as I told you, these are little old figures. With more excavations, the number of course is rising. Marshall and Mackay have identified 9 phases and 3 periods of settlement at Mohenjo-daro. So, repeatedly perhaps it was abandoned or it was deserted by floods or some other factors. There are silt deposits, so most probably it was floods, very huge floods, because silt deposits due to flooding is recorded at very high height. So, massive floods are indicated, and yet there are 9 phases of settlement at Mohenjo-daro and at 3 different periods. However, the lowest period or the lowest level has not been excavated because it is submerged in the subsoil water. We also have widest range of shells, stones and metals. For example, bronze dancing girl, the priest king, they all come from Mohenjo-daro. The Great Bath of course is there. Then towards the end, let us also talk of the Balakot site. This is on the ancient shoreline of Las Bela plain, and during the mature phase, but not earlier, there is instance of intensive utilization of sea shells or shank, as we call it in Hindi, for manufacturing of bangles. So, Balakot is known for bangle manufacture in Harappan period. It is a mud brick settlement, not burnt brick settlement, and Balakot was in contact with the neighboring Kuli culture of southern Baluchistan. We also have sites like Gadho, Bhiro and Kotkori. These are small Harappan sites in southern Sindh, and this interesting is to the east of Indus. So, most of the sites, as we said, due to flood discharge and alluvial deposits is to the west of Indus. Smaller sites, sporadic sites are to the east of Indus, and Garo, Bino and Kotkori are good examples of that. And this also highlights the importance of eastern Nara branch of the Indus and a land route that probably connected Sindh with the northern edge of the Run of Kutch. Now, this takes care of some specific sites which needed specific discussions. And in the earlier discussions, earlier 3 discussions that we have had, we have taken care of other areas, say the Run area, the Kathiawar area and the sites that are there so far as Harappan period is concerned. So, this takes care of the discussion on the settlement pattern of Harappan civilization, and you can use the inferences drawn during the discussion to make a sense of why some sites of Harappa are at a particular location in a better way. Thank you.